I completely forgot to mention in this video that my Halloween merch is now live. It's a limited edition collection for Halloween, so click the link down below to shop my merch. My regular merch is available still too, so make sure you check that out. Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about everything that I watched in the month of September. It wasn't too much, I'm gonna be real with you. We're not gonna go into too many movies that I watched. I think September was just kind of a busy month for me. For one, I went to LA this past weekend and it was phenomenal. Easily my favorite LA trip I think I've ever taken, because I went to Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios in Hollywood, and oh my goodness. You'd think that I wouldn't like Halloween Horror Nights, and I was actually so nervous because I do not like real life jump scares. I do not like haunted houses or haunts or anything like that. I do not go to them. But something about Halloween Horror Nights was amazing. I think it's because they're themed around movies and shows that I absolutely love. I went through the Texas Chainsaw Massacre maze, I went through The Exorcist and The Haunting of Hill House. I did the Terror Tram, which is Purge themed. I would have filmed my experience, maybe one day I will, but I was really trying not to have a heart attack most of the time. So, and it was my first time there and I was with a group of friends, so I really just wanted to enjoy my experience. Of course, I also went to Wizarding World. Now I think it's gonna be a yearly thing because it was just amazing. My favorite maze, I'm sorry I'm going on tangent in the beginning of this video. You can skip ahead if you don't care about Universal Studios or Halloween Horror Nights. My favorite maze of the whole night was Haunting of Hill House. I think that one was hands down the scariest one. The one I had the most fun with though was the Purge, because I was such a target. I don't know how, but I like got separated from my group. I was in the front of them, and so every single scare actor was just targeting me, but it was so much fun. I would highly recommend going if you ever get an opportunity to go, either in the one in Hollywood or the one in Orlando. Anyway, let's get into all the movies that I watched in September. Given that I had my trip and everything, I didn't watch too much, but I still got a lot of really amazing movies in. So starting off, the first thing that I watched in September was Scream, the original first Scream. I'm actually going through a rewatch of this franchise. Maybe I'll do a ranking video one day, but you know, I just want to prepare for the new one. In controversial opinion, they're not my favorite movies. Like I enjoy them, but I think they were a little overhyped. Ooh, that's an unpopular opinion. I'm sorry. I like Scream. I really do. It's self-aware. They're fun movies, a little goofy. So it's just, you know, not my favorite. I like the franchise, but much like Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street, it's just not my franchise, you know? Anyway, then after Scream, I watched GONJIAM, Haunted Asylum. I've talked about this already so many times, so be prepared for me to never shut up about this movie, but let's go a little bit more into detail of why I'm obsessed with this movie. This is the scariest movie I've maybe ever seen, ever. And that's saying a lot because obviously I've seen a lot of horror. Not much scares me these days. This Korean found footage movie follows a group of friends who host a web series and they visit the GONJIAM Haunted Asylum, or the GONJIAM Asylum I should say, which is based on a real life location actually in Korea. They soon discover the nightmares that the asylum holds. This is a slower movie to start and it was a little lost on me in the beginning. It does take a while to build up to the scares, but once you get there, they're relentless. They do not stop. It is so horrifying. Like I mentioned before, previous times I've talked about this movie, it immediately went into my top 10 movies of all time. Like that's how much I'm obsessed with this movie and how much I love it, how much it actually scared me. And it scared me in a way that is exciting because it's so rare for me to actually feel terror from a movie or a show or anything. So for it to be able to do that to me, it immediately became a favorite. And it's still one of those that I'm going to rewatch over and over and over again to feel that level of fear again and again. It's not like a level of fear or discomfort that's not enjoyable. It's highly entertainment. You know what I mean. Now that being said, I hype this up every single time, but I have to throw in a disclaimer. It is a very specific type of horror. If you're generally not scared of supernatural horror or like movies like The Ring or like creepy ghosty people, then this movie's not going to be for you. If you're more into home invasion slasher movies, those don't scare me in the slightest. This movie's not going to scare you like it does me. So it's not going to be effective for everyone. Not everyone's going to be as obsessed with it, but if you're obsessed with movies like The Ring or supernatural movies movies in general, definitely watch GONJIAM Haunted Asylum. Oh my god. Next up, I watched A Classic Horror Story, which is a recent release that came out on Netflix. It came out in July of this year, and it was honestly such a pleasant surprise and probably one of my favorite movie watching experiences this month. It is so unexpected and so unpredictable that I just could not see anything coming, so it was like a wild ride and a really good time. So this Italian horror movie follows a group of strangers carpooling through South Italy when the driver drunkenly causes an accident. They wake to realize they're no longer on the road, rather surrounded by dense forest next to a strange cabin. This movie takes so many risks that it's definitely not going to be for everyone. That goes without saying for most movies anyway, but this one especially I think is going to have mixed responses to it because it is something I have never seen before. Like the concept and where the story goes, so unpredictable. It was mind-boggling, honestly. I didn't see any of it coming, and then once I realized what we're actually facing and what the story's actually going towards, I was like, oh, this is unique. It's not a perfect film by any means. I will say it's highly entertaining and, you know, you're gonna get a fun viewing experience out of it, but I think the ratings right now sit about 50%, which is pretty accurate because it's going to be a hit or a miss for most people. It's also pretty gory and a ruthless, brutal movie, so if that's also something that you're into, definitely check out A Classic Horror Story. Next up, I watched Superhost. I think I've talked about this multiple times now at this point. I know I mentioned it before for a Shudder sponsor as something that I've watched recently on Shudder, but I think I talked about it again. Anyway, we're gonna talk about it again. So Superhost follows a couple who vlog their experiences staying in different vacation rentals when they check into a rental with a host that will go above and beyond for them. I do find the main characters, like the couple that vlogs their experiences, a little bit unlikable and unbelievable. I get no chemistry from them personally, and I really don't like them as people. Like, I'm not really rooting for them. They're kind of mean. I don't know. But the actor who plays Rebecca, who plays the host, right, who's desperate to get a positive review, is amazing. I think she definitely steals the show, obviously. She's so charismatic and I just love her character so much, and I think that is really what saves this movie for me. It's a little bit of a predictable movie, like you can probably imagine just by hearing the description what is gonna happen in this movie. It does star Barbara Crampton, which is fun, and just overall it's a fun movie. Don't expect like big budget Oscar winning or anything, but if it seems like you like the concept of them vlogging their vacation rentals and turning into a horror movie, then definitely check it out. I really liked it. It's a fun experience. Then I watched Practical Magic, 'Tis the Season. Then I watched Malignant. Dear God, save me from that experience. You can watch all my thoughts on that up here. Obviously, I did not like it. Not a fan, not a fan. No, thank you. Ryan showed me Starship Troopers. Actually, I had seen it before. That's right. I've seen it before. Again, my memory fails me so many times. I have seen it. I like that movie. It's fun. Totally irrelevant here, but just thought I'd mention that I rewatched that movie. I rewatched The Conjuring, the first one, in preparation for my Ranking the Conjuring Universe. I will link that video up here as well. And then I checked out The Collector from 2009. You guys have been telling me to watch this movie for years. It's been on my to-watch list for years. The Collector follows a man who's desperate to pay off his debt and targets a wealthy family, only to realize that a masked madman had actually gotten there first, lining the house with deadly traps. Honestly, I watched this weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and I feel like I'm still digesting this movie. It's just something about it doesn't sit right, and it's not comfortable for me. Like, this is a very uncomfortable movie for me personally. It does a lot of things that I don't really like in horror at all, so I think that's partially why I have a distaste for those aspects. Generally, the movie's good. It's just a little bit over the threshold of brutality of what I like. Obviously, generally, I gravitate more towards supernatural horror. Those are typically my favorite kinds of movies. So the gory, the brutal slashers, home invasion, all that kind of stuff isn't 100% for me. I enjoy them, obviously, because it's a majority of the horror genre, I feel. But to say that I enjoyed this movie would be an overstatement, because it's not something that I'm like excited to go rewatch immediately. It's just not one of those that makes me feel good, you know? I don't feel like it was a super fun time watching this. And for me, I like to get a lot of entertainment out of my horror movies. That's just me. So it was a one-time watch for me personally. However, I do think it was done really well, and I was pleasantly surprised surprised with this movie because I was expecting a really low budget slasher type movie, and it technically is. And when you watch the first like 15 to 20 minutes of this, it's pretty low budget, and you can kind of tell that it's just, I don't know, maybe a little dated, even though it's only 2009. And there are some really good parts in this movie that I enjoyed. It's basically Home Alone for adults. So there's that. I have heard the sequel is actually better than the original Collector movie. So once I watch that, hopefully this month in October, I will share my thoughts with you on that one. But let me know what you think about the Collector. Do you understand what I'm saying? But it's a little too much for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm alone in that because, you know, horror is supposed to make you slightly uncomfortable. It just wasn't a fun type of uncomfortable for me, and I was just uncomfortable for most of it, so it's a one-time watch for me. I then rewatched the original Annabelle, again preparing for my Conjuring franchise ranking video. Next, I watched Level 16 from 2018. I'm actually really excited to talk about this one. This is a sci-fi thriller that follows a group of girls at a prison-like boarding school where they were raised from birth and have known no other world. They soon begin to get curious about the truth of their captivity. So this is by the studio Dark Sky Pictures, who's brought us some really amazing gems like It Stains the Sands Red, Await Further Instructions, Possum, and The Innkeepers. All really good, underrated gems in the horror genre, if you ask me. But Level 16 is much more on the thriller, hardly thriller, maybe a little sci-fi drama movie, less horror. There's a couple horror elements in this. Of course, the concept alone is pretty horrifying. I also found this movie to be a tad predictable because of the circumstances and the conversations and things. I think we get a little too much information in the first half of this movie, so it becomes a little bit predictable by the end. So I kind of saw the twist coming and like why they're held there at all. But I love the concept of this movie, regardless if it was a little predictable for me. I still really enjoyed this concept of like this dystopian world. Technically it's not too dystopian, it just feels that way because these girls are held in this captivity. And I definitely think that this movie is very unique and very satisfying. It's a really good watch. If you're not sure what to watch, this is a really good one to just throw on. Like I said, more on the thriller side, minimal horror, definitely more thriller drama, but the story's really good and I really like where it takes it. So then I watched The Hunt. This was actually something that we watched in LA when we were with our friends, and then on the plane ride home, we watched Cruella on my phone. Now, this one I hardly want to put in this video. Cruella anyway is like not a horror movie, so it doesn't really matter, but we had it's an hour flight from where I live, from Sacramento to LA, so I only had an hour to fit in the movie. So I did skip around a lot in Cruella, but it's not my movie, not really my thing. I wasn't really excited about it anyway, but it's one of the free movies on there, so we decided to check it out. I don't know. Last thing I'm going to be talking about in this video, and it's not a movie at all. It is in fact Midnight Mass. This of course is the new Netflix series by Mike Flanagan, who obviously brought us the amazing, incredible Hill House and Bly Manor, among other movies. Like, come on. So this series follows a small island with a population just over 100 when a new charismatic priest shows up, igniting a new religious fervor to this dying town. So this is a religious drama series, and it was originally meant to be a movie, but it was turned into an extended series, and I'm very excited that it was, and I think it's just 7 episodes, but I'm really grateful because we get so much backstory and information and character development on these characters. Like, I feel like they're real people, and it's almost like a character study with all of these people. They're just so unique, and Mike Flanagan is just really genius when it comes to creating original characters. This is a classic Mike Flanagan series in my opinion. It's like nothing he's ever really done before, which was really impressive because sometimes when people take risks, James Wan and Malignant, it doesn't really go that well. This is definitely one of his slower works though, I would say. Out of everything that he's done, it leans more into the drama than the horror, but I feel like he does that anyway, besides like the horror movies that he's done, like Gerald's Game and Oculus and Hush. When he does a series, he really leans more into the drama. Like, that's something that he did with Hill House and Bly Manor, and this is really no different. I'd say it's even slower than those, which is not a bad thing. Like I said, we get a lot of character in the episodes. There's a lot of monologues in this, and they're famous monologues. Everyone talks about these monologues that break up the story, and it does have very amazing subtle horror elements in this that are they just complement the drama and the story and the monologues so well. Obviously, I really enjoyed Midnight Mass. It's so good. I highly, highly recommend it. Obviously, expect slower builds. There isn't even really horror in each episode, I would say. The last 2 episodes, though, are worth the journey, let me tell you. The Haunting of Hill House is hands down one of my favorite horror things to exist of all time. Like, I recently rewatched most of the series. We watched a lot of it in LA because obviously we were going to Haunting of Hill House, and I got my friends into it, which was so exciting. Even the ones who don't like horror said that they enjoyed the show. I just think Hill House is such a work of art, and I do like it more than Midnight Mass, but Midnight Mass is that classic Mike Flanagan type storytelling, which I love. Also, he adds in a little crossovers into his works, which I also love. Obviously, we have the Oculus mirror in The Haunting of Hill House, but also the book that the author writes in Hush, and also the book in Gerald's Game that is thrown at the dog, are both called Midnight Mass. Funny. But yeah, Midnight Mass, tragic, sad, crying. It's a lot of emotions in this show, but it is so good. Okay, well, there you have it. That is everything that I watched in the month of September. Oh, also before you ask, yes, I am watching Squid Game. I'm 2 episodes in as of right now. Hopefully I'll be able to talk about it at the end of October when I do my October recap. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on that, and let me know your thoughts on all of the things that I watched in the month of September, and anything that you would like me to watch in October to talk about in my next recap. So other than that, I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.